Who's excited? This is our first ever ladies' night, women's hormone. Shout out to my 3 husbands. Yes. Yes, ladies, come on. I tried so hard to get the husbands in here tonight, and I just tell you this, I'm excited on lots and lots of reasons, but here's what motivated us to put this on. I was going down asking lots and lots of questions to women, and I was asking, I have a daughter that's 3 years old, and I was asking a lot of women, and hey, did anybody have the conversation with you as you were getting up to that age of getting ready for your period? Did anybody have that conversation with you to prep you for what to expect? And a large answer was 0. Most women did not have a conversation or have that talk to say, hey, at some point, your body is going to change. At some point, this thing is going to happen. And here's what that's going to look like. And here's what that means. And there's just this kind of ambiguity. What's the word I'm looking for? There you go. That to this thing where now we don't really understand what's going on. So there's so many women who just don't understand what their body is going through throughout the month. And then that carries on. And then that doesn't get passed down. It doesn't get passed down. And you see this pattern. So here's my hope that tonight we're going to equip you guys, empower you guys with your bodies to understand that a lot of times what I've heard, and I'm going to try to speak from what I've heard because I don't know, right? A lot of this, but what I've heard is that the cycle gets looked at as a burden. And here's what I want you guys to know is that if you are made in the image of God beautifully and wonderfully, God made your bodies to do this process for a very specific reason, that there is something beautiful and empowering behind that. And I want you to stop looking at it as a burden and more as a blessing. Amen? I want you to understand this and know that, hey, when we can see it as a blessing, in fact, I've always heard this from a pastor one time, that sometimes the bigger the burden, the bigger the blessing, right? So when you look at what your bodies can do when it comes to childbirth, the hardest thing I've ever seen my wife go through, right? But it produces the greatest blessing ever, right? So when you start looking at what your hormones are doing throughout the month, when you understand what we're going to go through tonight, I promise you guys are going to walk out of here tonight and this all of a sudden goes from a burden to a superpower. Like knowing how to leverage your hormones, how to leverage your cycle becomes so empowering. I'm going to get to it later on, but I'll just say this. As a husband, I've asked my wife now, hey, send me your cycle. I want to know where you're at in your cycle. And now that I know, it's like I have the answers to the test. Like I know what to do. I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes so much more sense now. Like she's going through this. Wait, hold on, where's my cheat sheet? Oh, that makes sense. Right? So it's like now when you guys understand it, now how much better is it to communicate that to your spouse, right? To communicate that out, or even for you to know, hey, in this season, this is what I need. This is what my body needs. So a lot of really good stuff to go through. So, let's make sure I don't forget anything. Okay, so as we transition, here we're going to do it. What we're going to do, if we're going to start off understanding hormones and how it works, the basis is how does your cycle work and what is your cycle and what happens throughout your cycle. So, kicking this thing off. Oh, wait, before we do that. Oh, yeah, look at that. Oh,
all the girls.
I know.
And
Okay.
Dr. Mike.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, like he was saying, before we go into like how do we understand dysfunctions in our cycle, the first thing we have to understand is, well, what does even a normal cycle look like? I think for a lot of us, for me, like I was just taught, oh, your cycle is you get your period once a month and that's it. And that's actually not it. Your period isn't even the main event of your cycle. There are 4 different phases that you go through with 4 different main hormones. So you guys have all of this in your packet you can follow along with. But the first thing you need to understand about your cycle is that the main event of your cycle is actually ovulation. And it is very important to make sure that you are ovulating every cycle because that is what is going to regulate your estrogen and progesterone production each cycle. So as we go through, you have your 4 phases, your menstruation, your follicular phase, your ovulation, and then your luteal phase. Your 4 main hormones are obviously estrogen and progesterone. Everyone knows those. And then your other 2 are going to be your follicular follicle stimulating hormone and then luteinizing hormone. So the names go along with it, which is really nice, makes it easy to remember. So here's what's happening throughout your cycle. We're going to get a little bit into the nitty-gritty here, and I'm going to make it simple to follow, but we do need to understand what each hormone is doing at each phase of our cycle. So we start out, day 1 of your cycle is day 1 of your bleed. Now, technically, as we go through this, your period is the conclusion of your cycle. But for tracking purposes, it's always just easier to say day 1 of your bleed is day 1 of your cycle. And so that's what we go with. So your menstrual phase is that day 1 of bleed through whenever you stop bleeding. During that phase, follicle stimulating hormone, the green one here, starts to go up. And follicle stimulating hormone tells your body to start getting eggs ready. So we start to mature eggs to get ready for ovulation. So as that's going up, as those eggs are getting ready, those eggs maturing stimulates estrogen. And so estrogen starts to build here. So in your follicular phase, estrogen is building, and that is typically when we feel really good. We have good energy, good moods, good mental clarity. When estrogen reaches its peak, that triggers luteinizing hormone, the yellow one here. So luteinizing hormone does a quick surge in peak, and when that peaks, that triggers ovulation. So that peak tells your body, release that egg from the ovary into the uterus. Here's what's really important to understand here. This is the only time that you can get pregnant. How many of you were told that you can get pregnant any day of your cycle, even on your period? Yeah, me too. It's not true. And so that's why it's really important to identify what day you're ovulating on, because that's, if there's no egg to fertilize, you can't get pregnant, right? Now, we do typically give you a window. It's called a fertile window because sperm can live for up to 5 days. And so if you are trying to not become pregnant, that's really important to understand. So you want to give yourself a buffer on each side. So anyway, so that's luteinizing hormone triggers ovulation. Once that egg is released, that triggers progesterone, that blue one. And so progesterone then starts to build. Progesterone is our favorite because it is our calming hormone. It tells us everything's gonna be okay, life is good, you're great. And so that starts to build, and that is actually building in anticipation of pregnancy. So whether it is your goal or not to become pregnant, that's what your body's preparing for every single cycle. At some point, when your body realizes it is not pregnant, all of your hormones start to come down, and then that will trigger that release of the egg and cleaning out of that uterine tissue. That triggers your period to start, and then we start that cycle all over again. How many of you guys knew most of that?
This is why we're here.
Great, I love it. Okay, perfect. So good review for some of you. That's great. So this is what a normal cycle looks like. And I want to second what Dr. Mike said about we have to stop seeing our hormones as something that work against us and are a problem for us, because this cascade of hormones is so cool, and it's such a cool way that God designed. Each one plays a specific role. And so if one is lagging, you start to see the whole thing fall apart because each one triggers the next and the next. And I don't know, I just think that's super cool. We have this 28 to 40 day cycle where men have a 24-hour cycle that just resets every day. But our bodies are so different and unique that every day is different, which yay. Sometimes that's good. So yeah.
Write that down, guys.
Okay, so that is what normal is. Here's what normal is not. And here's what we have been conditioned to believe is normal because it is common. And so we have to remember that just because something's common doesn't mean that it's normal. Horrible cramps, PCOS, vomiting, nausea, excessive bleeding, none of that is normal. No energy, big mood swings, endometriosis, hot flashes, no sex drive, infertility, cysts, fibroids. None of that is normal. And yet I bet each and every one of you, either yourself or know someone who struggles with one or more things on this list every month. So what happens and how this gets out of whack is typically we'll have too much estrogen in the first phase and not enough progesterone in the second phase. Sometimes it's one or the other, sometimes it's both playing off of each other, but that is typically what happens. And when that gets out of whack, this is what we start to see come up. And that is not good. The sign of a healthy cycle is not even really knowing that your period is coming. You should have subtle signs and kind of know where you're at, but you shouldn't be like, oh, I know I'm having horrible cramping, so I know I'm going to get my period next week. That is not a good thing. So, how does everything start to get out of whack? Dr. Mike is going to go over some lifestyle things that get us out of whack.
So when I was getting ready for this, I just for fun, I was pulling up some numbers. 35% of women today have PCOS. Like that right there was enough to push us to have the seminar because I'm like, that's not okay, right? And here's one of the things that we kind of look at when we look at this whole thing is, I guess the question is why, right? Like, why is this thing so outrageously big? And when we start getting to this stuff, this is where your metabolism meets PCOS, endometriosis, mood swings, meets all of these things. So metabolic dysfunction will then lead into all this other part. And when I say metabolic dysfunction, we're looking at insulin resistance. So insulin resistance is one of the big factors that are going to lead to estrogen dominance. Okay, so I'm not saying that if you have insulin resistance, you don't technically have to be labeled diabetic. You could just have very imbalanced insulin and blood sugar, and that is going to eventually lead to a PCOS. So here's what I think happened. Go back. Does everybody remember the phase like years ago where everyone said, "Hey, you got to eat like 6 small meals a day, and that's how we be healthy"? Remember that? That was, I think, one of the big cascades that got us to this insulin resistance place. Like, we are not designed to be grazing like cows all day long. Like, the fact of eating small meals all day long, here's kind of what this happens. So, like, imagine yourself. I thought about this a lot this morning. Imagine yourself, you wake up and you sit down, have a cup of coffee, and then all of a sudden, right when you sit down, the kid's like, "Mom!" And you're like, "Okay, get back up." And you got to go take care of them. Then you got to sit back down, read your Bible, and then, "Mom!" Get back up. You got to go back down. Okay, come back, sit down. "Mom!" And then it's like that up and down, up and down. Here's what your insulin's doing. Whenever your insulin wants to try to rest and reset and you feed it, it has to spike again. And then right when it goes to rest, you feed it again. And when we're eating every 2 hours, what's happening is your body is literally doing this with your insulin levels and it's never getting a chance to rest. So our insulin levels are getting depleted or they're getting like exhausted. And then what happens is, like I said, this gets driven up. And then the reality is this too. I think most women most guys too, most of us are perfectly fine eating 3 nutrient dense meals a day, unless you are training for an Ironman or like doing something extreme, maybe one more meal. But there's no need for us to be grazing meals all day long. Does that make sense? And here's what's interesting is I even did, so for me, this was 2 years ago, just for fun. I like to experiment with different things. And I bought a CGM, so a continuous glucose monitor that was tracking my blood sugar and my insulin. And so I get up, and at this time, I was doing 5 days a week CrossFit workouts. Then I would come here and I would adjust people all day long. And then I would go home and I would wrestle my 2 toddlers. And I was like, I'm having enough energy output that I feel like I need to eat all day long, right? So that's what I was doing. I was started to track my insulin, and my insulin came back as if I was diabetic. And I was like, well, that's weird. Because I feel like I'm putting out enough energy that my body's going to utilize all this. But it was coming back so bad. So I had to go back and reset. And what we found was when I went back and reset, if I just ate 3 solid nutrient dense, like full macro dense meals, I wasn't hungry for the rest of the day. And then and we'll get into it, but we're going to talk about fasting a little bit, like knowing when to fast. Guys, we just fast whenever we want because ours are pretty steady. You guys, you need to fast according to your cycle, and we're going to teach you how tonight. But when you start looking at this, one of the big things that we have to realize, if you don't ever give your insulin a break, then this is when we start leading in. So basically, bad insulin levels peaks estrogen, and then that gets you to PCOS and endometriosis, the mood swings. So here's where, when we're going to get into it in a minute, but fasting and making sure that we're slowing down our meal times. And then when we start looking at the how we get to the bad insulin, here's one of the other things. So there was also the craze of low fat. Remember that? The low fat craze? So low fat, high carb. For whatever reason, we thought that was a good idea. So here's what you got to realize is that your hormone and your insulin levels building blocks is healthy fats. So when we take off all those fats, you're no longer putting the right building blocks for your body to build. So when we're taking away all the healthy fats and we're increasing the carbs, and most people, whenever I ask you to track it, most people are not getting enough protein in their diet either. So now we're not getting enough protein, our fat levels are down, and we wonder why our hormones are all over the place. It's like you're not giving the car enough of the right fuel to do its job. Does that make sense? So making sure we're switching that around with our fat and our carbs, eating too few calories. So this is another big one that I think came across mainly for a lot of women was, hey, you got to cut calories. You got to cut calories. Here's the reality. Your body needs a base minimum number of calories just to survive and to do its job. And a lot of you guys, like when we start cutting down, it's like your car is running on fumes because it has not enough fuel to, again, do its job. So we have to realize that and I say this because I've even asked people in the past. I go, hey, how many times a day do you eat? And sometimes the answer is like one. We're eating one meal a day. And then when I ask what you're eating, and I'm like, that's not enough. My toddler eats more than that. Like we're not getting enough fuel in our bodies. So your bodies are literally like starving for energy. So if it's starving for energy, what's going to happen is it's going to start pulling from other places because it needs to get fuel, right? Then we're not going to get super into nutrition tonight, but when it comes to nutrients, if you're not giving your body the right nutrients, then it's going to be starving for either sugar or for fat. We want it to use fat for energy, not sugar for energy. So if the majority of your diet is basically like simple carbs, fast acting carbs, if it's sugary drinks, if it's that's what you're putting in, it's not a sustainable fuel source. So now your body is getting depleted because it's not getting what it needs. So far, so good? So we got to watch out for those things there. And it's funny because the simple carbs, I'll have people sometimes do a nutrition tracker. So I'll have you write down everything you eat for a week and we'll go over it together. And the standard American way of living is like there is bread and grains and carbs in every single meal. And I'm Italian. So I grew up like that was a staple of all my meals. It was like pasta with garlic bread. But the reality is like we don't need to have bread with every single meal. It's like you wake up and we have a bagel and then we have a sandwich for dinner and then we have like pizza or pasta for, it's like there's always some kind of grain. And it's like, I promise you'll be okay if we cut back on the grains. It's going to be okay. So how do we fix this? Number one, 3 nutrient dense meals a day. And when we say nutrient dense, I think in our country, we are overfed but malnourished. We eat a lot of food that have no nutrients to it. So our bodies are hungry for nutrients. So we got to eat whole, real foods. The best things to eat are the things that don't have ingredient labels. The single ingredient foods, right? If you go pick up a steak, there's no ingredients because it's just steak, right? If you go pick up like a bell pepper, again, it's just bell pepper. It's like the single ingredient things are the best things to start eating because you don't want to have a bunch of things in there. Fasting, we're going to get to this. So when we're going to go through each part of your cycle and we're going to teach you where should you do fasting and where should you not do fasting based on what hormones are being produced. That's going to be a big part of this. Eliminating processed sugars. So this is your sucralose, this is your aspartame, this is your Splenda. This sneaks into a lot of things. And a lot of times, I'll ask, hey, are you eating this? They go, no, I'm not eating that. That's nasty. And then I go, let me see your food. And they go, boom, 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 boom. And it sneaks in. It's not your fault, but they sneak it into everything. Seed oils, another one, very, very inflammatory. You gotta watch out for the seed oils. You can literally just Google seed oils and it'll give you a whole list. But anything that's packaged, be aware of what oils are being put in there because that's another big damager. Start moving to healthy carbs. So like raw honey, fruit, vegetables. These are like healthy, real carbs your body can recognize. And then in our family, I call this no naked carbs. So meaning you don't eat carbs alone. These are the things that get you in trouble is when you eat carbs by themselves. But when you pair carbs with something, it's not so bad. So like if you were to go and eat just some strawberries, it's good, but strawberries will also spike your insulin. But if you put strawberries in some like full fat yogurt, it brings it down. If you put a scoop of protein powder in your full fat yogurt with your strawberry, almost no spike whatsoever. So here's what's cool. The body, when you pair certain foods together, you can help balance your insulin levels. So the way that you do that is you pair protein or fat with your carb at all times. So that's just like the mantra we always say at our house is no naked carbs. You don't let carbs go in by themselves. They always have to be partnered with a buddy, a protein buddy or a whole fat buddy. So far, so good? Okay. Now, moving on to what damages and messes up our estrogen. So estrogen is like so high. In fact, when I did that CGM, I did a blood test and like I thought like with me lifting heavy weights often throughout the week, eating a lot of like I even went carnivore for a little bit just for fun, my estrogen was so high and my testosterone was so low and I'm like that doesn't make any sense, right? So I'm like I'm doing the right things. So even when I had to sit back and dive into this, once I put the right things in place, I was able to flip these guys back around into their normal place. So if you've been there and you've had your testing done, like there is a healthy way to flip this around. We're going to talk you guys through this. If you've never had testing done, we're going to talk you through how to get testing done for your hormones. Very, very exciting because again, and I'm just going to like plant the seed real quick. We have testing now for all of you ladies on how to track your cycles effectively and how to look at all of your hormones effectively. And it's like, again, if you know exactly where you are, you know exactly what to do to get them corrected. Does that make sense? So that's a big one. So what are the things that are damaging us? So estrogen mimickers. So these are things in our society that literally mimic estrogen in the body and it drives up estrogen even more. Okay? So tap water. Here's why this is so bad. Do you know what's in tap water? No, no one does because there's so much stuff in tap water. Like when there's now pharmaceutical drugs that are coming up in tap water because most pharmaceutical drugs are water soluble, which means when you take them, you're peeing them out into the tap water. They're finding birth control in tap water. In fact, you're not supposed to do this, but when people get done taking medicine, or let's say that you're on the pill, and then all of a sudden you go, oh my God, the pill's not good. What do I do with it? We, for some reason, flush it down the toilet. We put so much stuff down the toilet. There's so many heavy metals in our tap water. There's so much chlorine. There's all these things that are damaging our bodies, piking up estrogen. So number one, eliminate all tap water from your lips. Never put tap water in again. Plastic, microplastics are another one that is mimicking estrogen. And you're gonna see this a lot in our Tupperware. You're gonna see this a lot in plastic water bottles. When I was a kid, I don't know if anyone still does this. You don't tell me, just don't do it anymore. Where like you go buy a big thing of water bottles from Costco and you leave it in your trunk. So then yeah, my dad did that. I'm like, Dad, I'm thirsty. And he'd go like, the water's in the trunk. And it's like this hot plastic water bottle. And like, yeah, I don't know how I'm alive still. But like we drink from these plastic water bottles or we like heat up our food in plastic Tupperware and you are leaching plastic into your food. Find anywhere that you have plastic and eliminate it out, right? Glass Tupperware, use stainless steel bottles. If you're gonna cook, even be careful of what you're cooking with. So if you have like plastic utensils, do you ever look at your utensils after a while and you wonder how it's all degraded? Do you ever wonder where that went? Into your food, right? When you're putting on a hot pan. So move to wooden or stainless steel utensils, like those are big ones. Cosmetics. So I can't speak from this, but here's what I learned. I learned this, that the average woman today, before she leaves the house, is applying 13 products with over 168 chemicals. That's a lot of chemicals. That's a lot. And in those products, if you're not using something that's been tested and clean, the average product has heavy metals inside of there, which again is driving up your levels. So these are other big things, making sure that if you're using cosmetics, you're putting very clean, being careful of what's being put on your skin, because whatever goes in your skin, you guys probably heard this, your skin is your largest organ, and it's gonna seep into your body. So being very, very careful of what's going on your skin. Non-organic produce and meats. Here's why this one's big. Meats, if you're not getting full grass-fed, clean meats, what do you think that cow is getting injected with? What do you think that cow is eating? Whatever that cow consumes, you are now consuming. So you got to make sure that your meats are very, very clean. And the same thing with all the sprays that are getting sprayed all over the vegetables. Ooh, Spreadables, like, so all the herbicides and pesticides, all of these things are damaging our hormones. So this is why it's like, does it make sense to spend the extra $3 for the bell pepper? Yes. Yes, it does. I'll say that right now. Yes, it does. Because again, and you guys again probably heard this saying, but if you don't pay for the good stuff now, you're going to end up paying for it on the back end when your body does get sick. Invest in it now. Buy the good things now. And then cleaning and laundry products. This is another big one. So with cleaning and laundry products, you know that if you go into a fertility clinic, they won't even let you wear perfumes in there, right? Because they know how much those products, the scents and the fragrances in there are affecting us. Specifically, have you guys heard the word phthalates? Specifically the word phthalate with a pH, those are the ones that are really getting in, messing up your estrogen levels and damaging your hormones. So here's how you look for phthalates. Most of the time on products, you'll see it, it'll say phthalate free. Okay, if it doesn't say phthalate free, look at the ingredients. In the ingredients, if you see fragrance, it has phthalates most likely. Okay, look for the word fragrance. That's how you know it's in there. But you got to watch out for those because these are, again, big things that are mimicking your hormones. Okay, and the other one. How many of you guys, like, especially now that it's fall, how many of us pop out our like pumpkin spice candles, right? Don't lie to me. I know it. All of us, right? We get it, and then it's like you walk past Bath and Body Works, and it's like all these scents come in, and then you have a migraine for an hour, right? Because what's happening is all of these fragrances and scents that are in there, they are so toxic to our bodies. So you got to be very, very, very aware of where you're getting those. Move to the essential oils. Move to, like, the other day my wife just like I think she just took like cinnamon sticks and found some way to just use like cinnamon sticks in boiled water and cinnamon sticks. And I'm like, that smells great. She's like, it's free. It's so easy. Like, she's so excited. So these are the biggest things to watch out for, things that are going to mimic your estrogen and damage hormones. Now, this is the topic of the night.
Yeah, you know we can't have a hormone workshop without talking about birth control, right?
Yes.
So, here's the problem with birth control is when you are using a medication to try to fix a hormone problem by adding more synthetic hormones in, this is what you are doing. You are pouring gasoline on a fire that is already burning. What happens is we're trying to use an outside solution for an inside problem. There's always something at the root of what is causing whatever dysfunction is going on. And I understand, like, some people do use birth control for the sake of birth control, but I think most people at this point that I have found from who I've talked to use it for some kind of hormonal problem. And what that is doing is it is just suppressing the problem. It's like a band-aid covering up what's actually going on. And so what happens is we take this medication, say a girl is 16, has really painful, heavy periods, maybe has really bad acne. Her doctor says, here, go on the pill. That'll regulate your cycle, regulate your hormones. It'll be fine. You start taking this and you just suppress all the dysfunction that's been going on. Leave her on that for 10 years. Comes time and she's like, okay, now I want to have a baby, so I'm going to go off of birth control. Well, guess what's still been going on and building up for the past 10 years? And almost always, none of the problems have gotten better. And a lot of times we find they've gotten worse because when you leave a problem unaddressed and suppressed for a long time, it just like explodes and gets so much worse. So we have to remember that we can never use an outside solution for an inside problem. So, what birth control actually does, I think it's really important to understand what it's actually doing. So, it is a continuous dosage of either estrogen and or progestins. And these are synthetic versions of these hormones. But remember, with that hormone cascade, right? You need each hormone to trigger the next and the next. And so if you're getting a continuous level dosage of one or both of these hormones, you're not triggering ovulation to happen, right? You're totally shutting that down because there's no estrogen surge to trigger luteinizing hormone. And so that never happens. And because that never happens, you never have a period. Now, you do have a bleed, right? Every month. So you have your 3 weeks of the pill and then you have your 1 week of the sugar pill where you bleed, but that is not an actual period because think about it, there's no egg. If you're not ovulating, there's no egg, there's nothing for your body to get rid of. And so what you're having is a withdrawal bleed because you're stopping taking those hormones and it causes your body to bleed. But there's actually no reason to do that. The reason that they added that in was to increase compliance. Because way back when they first started introducing this pill, women were concerned. They were like starting to take this pill and realized that it made them lose their period, and they understood that that was a problem. And so what they did was they put in the sugar pill so that you would have a period every month. But that's not what it is. And that's why it's truthfully kind of a load of crap when they tell you that this is going to regulate your period, because that's not what it's doing. It's just turning it off completely.
Anybody else angry? I'm not even on this. I'm angry. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's so bad. And so here's a good way to think about it, right? When you stop ovulating, when you stop having your period, what do we call that? Later on in life. Yeah. So we're essentially putting ourselves into a temporary state of menopause. We would never do this for men, because we understand that testosterone is very important to the health of men, not just for reproduction, right? So I don't know how you would feel if I said, hey, are you guys trying to get pregnant right now? No? Great. Here's a medication. It's going to shut off all of your testosterone, but it's okay. No worries. You'll be fine. No man would ever go through that, right?
Trust the doctors.
Yeah. Because we understand that there are other functions besides just reproduction, right?
Mm.
So for females, when we completely shut that off, our cycle is considered our fifth vital sign. That's how important it is to the health of the rest of our body. And so the health of your cycle indicates the health of the rest of your body. So when we shut that off, we start to see a lot of other things pop up. And here's the problem, is that this pill is being given out like candy, and you're not told any potential negatives of taking this pill, right? You're not told that you're gonna be at risk of blood clots. Blood clots are fatal. If a blood clot gets to your brain or your lungs, like, people have died from blood clots on the pill. You're not told that your B vitamins are completely depleted. Your minerals like zinc and selenium are completely depleted. And these are important, essential nutrients for the health of your adrenals, for the health of your brain and your spinal cord. Like, you guys are all here, you know how important your brain and your spinal cord are, right? Bloating, depression, anxiety, weight gain, hormone imbalances. Interesting. I thought it was supposed to balance our hormones. Infertility. I can't tell you how many women that I've talked to who go on the pill and then they come off when they're ready to get pregnant, and then find that it takes months to sometimes a couple of years to be able to get pregnant, because when you've suppressed something for so long, it takes a long time to get that back up and going. But that is devastating for women, and they're not warned about that. We can go through more and more thyroid dysfunction. There's a recent study that came out that found when you are on the pill long term, you have a 287% greater risk of developing hypothyroid disease. That is 3 times greater risk. Think about it. How many girls started 10 years ago when they're in high school taking the pill, and now we see girls in their late 20s, early 30s developing Hashimoto's disease and hypothyroidism, right? It's a big problem right now. And no one's looking back to see, well, how long have you been on the pill? So
Breast cancer.
breast cancer, thank you. When you're on the pill, there is a 10-fold increased risk of breast cancer. And this is one that actually hit home for me when I heard that, because about a year ago, I received news that a close family friend of ours, one of their family members, was 23 years old, and she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And she went in, and when she received her diagnosis, the first question the doctor asked her was, have you been on birth control long term? And she had been on it since high school to regulate her periods. And so he never said, this is why you have cancer, but he did say, you need to stop taking that right away. And unfortunately, about a month ago, she passed away from breast cancer. And I don't share that story to be like, you're going to die if you're on breast cancer. But I think it's really, really important to understand this is the seriousness of when we are putting a chemical medication into our body. We have to understand there are serious risks that for some people end up that way. I also wanted to talk about the copper IUD because I think that that can sometimes be seen as like a better option. It's not hormonal, maybe more natural. But here's what we see with the copper IUD. Endometriosis, PCOS, PMDD, and PMS actually tend to increase in severity when you have the copper IUD. And then we also have to look at copper toxicity because copper is a metal and it's a foreign synthetic object that we're putting in our body. And so what they found is that copper toxicity increases depression, ADHD, Alzheimer's, autism, hyperactivity in children, which when I read that, I was like, well, we don't give the copper ID to children, so how is that affecting them? But think about it. Where does a child grow and eventually come out of? That same area where that copper IUD has sat. And so when toxicity has built up over time, that can affect that baby in the future. Bipolar disorders, fibromyalgia, paranoid schizophrenia, I would not say that this is a better option for anyone.
Can I just, one thing that I think is super, super important is that a lot of you guys here tonight, this is a conversation that you have to be ready and comfortable to have with your daughters or future daughters.
Mhm.
This is a conversation that doesn't happen. So the reason why young girls feel so ready to go on it, because all their friends are going on it, is no one's having this conversation. Does that make sense? Like
Mhm.
we have to get out of this place where I think sometimes it's like, well, it's uncomfortable to talk about this, or sometimes culturally it's like, well, we don't really want to talk about the sexual stuff. We got to get past that. Can I just say that? We got to get past that and say, no, no, no. I need to educate myself and my daughter to make sure they fully understand what they're getting themselves into when it comes to this stuff, right?
Mhm. Yeah, it totally becomes a thing that you just do. I remember when I was in high school and I was like, well, all my friends are getting on the pill. Like, why can't I? And thank God I didn't because my mom was like, no, you're not doing that. And then now understanding what actually is happening, it's such a good thing. But you're right, it's just something that girls do. Do you guys know what a black box warning is? So a black box warning means that death is associated with this medication. There are certain brands or types of birth control that do come with a black box warning, and it reads, this medication can cause serious, permanently disabling, life-threatening, or fatal effects compared to the potential benefit of the drug. There's so much more that we don't have time to go into tonight, but The Business of Birth Control is a documentary that I have been watching this week getting ready, and it just like dives deep into the history of birth control and all of this stuff. It tells stories of girls who have been on the pill, parents who have lost their daughters due to this. And so I would just encourage you all to go and watch that and just take that deeper dive into understanding. The whole background on it is so crazy and corrupt too, and really not for the freedom of women at all, the way that we were sold. So I included on the very last page of your packet, these are some specific protocols and just help with getting off the pill, because hopefully when you guys leave tonight, if this is something that you have done in the past or you are doing currently, hopefully you're taking steps to get off of it. So what you want to do is support your minerals and B vitamins that have been depleted. Our Women's Hormone Balance does a great job of replenishing that. I included some options for cycle tracking because I think that one reason that women do go on birth control is because they don't know where their fertile window is, and so they just take the pill to make it simple. But if we can empower ourselves to understand where that is and where we're at in our cycle, you don't need it because you just know where you're at. If you guys need help with that, please come and talk to me because it is a little bit of a learning curve. You totally got it. But if you need help, come and talk to me. There is a specific app for teens too, which I think is really cool because they need to be learning this now and building that habit so that you're not like me and you're like 30 years old and like, okay, now I have to learn how to track my cycle. And then a couple other supplements that can help you as well. Okay, recap real quick. So we are going to go into how to support each phase of your cycle through nutrition, workouts, mindset, really just lifestyle habits. So just to recap, remembering we have the menstrual phase, which is that follicle stimulating hormone. Estrogen goes up in the follicular phase. We have ovulation and then progesterone in the luteal phase. So,
I feel like this might be the most beneficial, one of the most beneficial parts of the whole talk is
Yeah.
this next part. Like helping you, like I said earlier, this could be a superpower. If you understand every single phase, what your body is going through, what you should and shouldn't do during each phase, this is where you anchor to your superpower. Men in the room, this is the one time of the talk to listen up. This is the time. I'm gonna help you out here.
Have you guys heard of cycle syncing at all? So this is kind of what we're going to go through is cycle syncing made simple. So the first thing, I think the most simple thing we can do when it comes to supporting our hormones is seed cycling. So seed cycling is taking 1 tablespoon of 2 different types of seeds throughout your cycle. And we're going to take flax seeds and pumpkin seeds in the first half. That's going to support estrogen production and estrogen balance. And then in your second half, we switch to sesame and sunflower seeds. That's going to help with progesterone production. That is like so simple. Just a tablespoon of each of those per day, and you're already doing so much for your hormones. You put it in a smoothie, put it in a yogurt bowl. You can just eat it if you want to. So that's first and foremost. Then we're going into each phase. I think the easiest way to think of this is thinking of each phase as a season. So your menstrual phase is your winter season. Everything is, all the dead stuff is being cleared out. We're very low energy. And so we want to focus on warming, comforting foods, things like bone broth, liver, grass-fed beef to support the iron that is lost through the blood loss that we're having. We want things to support B vitamins like leafy greens, dark chocolate. You guys know why we crave chocolate on our period is because we need it. So you can have chocolate. Make sure it's dark chocolate. Raw carrots and raw carrot juice are really good if you are someone who struggles with estrogen dominance or someone whose estrogen peaks too fast at the beginning of your cycle. You know your estrogen peaks too fast when you have really bad PMS or really bad mood swings towards the beginning of your cycle or right before your cycle, or if your energy is super, super low at the beginning of your cycle. So raw carrots, raw carrot juice are really good for that. And then we want to focus on omega-3 rich foods, so those healthy fats. Like Dr. Mike talked about, healthy fats are so important at every phase of our cycle because fats are what help to produce hormones. So we want to focus on things like eggs, avocado, wild-caught fish. During this phase specifically, this helps to deal with inflammation and keeping your energy up as well. And then dates are another really good one for estrogen support. I don't know about you guys, but I could eat dates like all day, every day. They're so good, and they help to curb that sugar craving that you get kind of when you're in your cycle. So that's a really good one. When it comes to exercise, here is my take on exercise cycle syncing. I don't think that it's a good thing to change the type of workouts you're doing every single week. Meaning, I don't think it's good to do 1 week of yoga, 1 week of running, 1 week of lifting, 1 week of Pilates. Like, I think it's very beneficial to do a consistent routine, but we want to change up how we do it and the intensity that we do it too. So during this phase, our energy is low. And so we do want to be gentle, low intensity, keep it to walks, maybe a little bit of yoga. Here's how I kind of approach this phase myself is that I use this as a time to really check in with my body and listen to my body. If I, in the first couple of days, I'm like super tired, and so I know that I need to just keep it at walks. Once we get past those first couple of days and my energy starts to come up a little bit, kind of feel it out. Show up to the gym and see, maybe I want to just do something low intensity but still show up, and that actually can help with your energy. But pay attention, because if you're so, so tired, you don't want to deplete your energy further. So this is a really good time to just really check in with yourself and get in sync with what you need at this time. And then when it comes to your mindset, so keeping in mind, you are at your lowest point of energy during this time. So it is normal to feel a little more withdrawn, a little more introspective. And so you want to slow down and be patient with yourself, rest when you can, nap if you need to, let your partner take over and help with some of the normal day-to-day things. And then what can guys do?
Gentlemen, repeat after me. Days 1 through 3, let her be. This will save you lots and lots. No, like, so to her point, when I found this out and when my wife started sending me her cycle and I knew this, it's like, hey, and when her cycle starts, this is when, if you have young kids, you take over the kids as much as you can. Let her like be. You do more of the dishes, you do more of the cleaning, like you pick up the pace a lot more as the man when you know that this is where she is. Like this is brownie point central. Like if you know that her energy is lower and things are less as a woman, like it's in your nature to want to be that protector, not protector, that like nurturer of the home, and that like, right. But as a man, if you can help her during this couple days, it brings so much peace to her. So like this is the time when you take over and you do those things for these couple days until estrogen starts to peak.
Mm-hmm. Good, which leads us into our follicular phase. So, during this phase, nutrition wise, we want to focus on estrogen balance. So, we want to support estrogen production, but we also want to support estrogen detox a little bit here because we don't want to become too estrogen dominant. So, again, the flax and pumpkin seeds, again, focusing on healthy fats, avocado, coconut oil, grass fed butter. Things like berries, citrus fruits, cruciferous vegetables, these are going to help with balancing out that estrogen, keeping oxidative stress low. Your oxidative stress goes up right before ovulation, and so these help to keep that in check. And then things like cabbage, lentils, quinoa, salmon, eggs, oysters, all of these help with the building of the uterine lining. So we want to eat things that will support that uterine lining so that it's nice and healthy. When it comes to exercise, our estrogen is going up, our energy is going up, and so we can take up the intensity. So leaning more into strength training, leaning more into running, leaning more into HIIT workouts, but remembering stay consistent with what you're doing, but just increase that intensity. You can add a little more cardio into your workouts here. Your estrogen being higher increases your collagen production, and so you're less injury prone during this phase. Your ligaments are a lot stronger. So, this is a good time to really push yourself.
Mhm.
When it comes to mindset, estrogen gives us that optimal outlook on life. Like everything is great, good mental clarity. Estrogen is the precursor for serotonin, dopamine, and noradrenaline. That is why we feel calm, happy, satisfied during this phase. Estrogen also calms the fear centers in our brain. And so we tend to feel more confident, willing to take more risk. So this is a good time to have tough conversations, handle conflict because your fear centers are calm, you have good energy, good mental clarity, and so you're going to be a better communicator during this time.
This is not the time to pick battles with your wives. You will lose every time. If you've ever noticed when they can just recall everything really fast, it's during this week. This is the week. And you're like, oh my. And yes, that's also true. But no, this is, I would say that if you want to get women during this time are typically really creative. This is a really good time to like start new projects. If you're wanting to like redo something in the house, they have the best ideas and they're ready to go and attack everything. Like this is a really good time to do that part. Starting new adventures, going on adventures with your wife, like outdoor things. Like they're really excited for that stuff. So you guys are like, nice. We want to do that during these times. So those are the times to like plan those things because it's really hard when you get really excited about planning this thing. If you plan it during the wrong week, you lose. So plan the exciting stuff during this phase right here.
Yes. So, here's a good rule of thumb for also like figuring out what cycle you're in. If you are someone who doesn't have that typical 28-day cycle, which let's be honest, most people don't. So we have that menstrual phase, and then your follicular phase is the first day after you finish your bleed until ovulation. So, however long that is for you, for some people it's about a week, for some people it's longer, but that is how we track where that's at. And then we get into our ovulatory phase. This is like our summer. These are like our 3 glorious days that we get in our cycle where we feel so good. You just feel good energy. You feel more attractive and more just confident in yourself during this phase. So, what we want to do during this phase is support liver detox because estrogen is now coming way down. And so, we want to support that detox as it's happening. So keeping up with our cruciferous vegetables, our broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, And then things like leafy greens and cold water fish, we want light but nourishing options. Our appetite can tend to go down during this phase because we are not in foraging mode. We are in reproduction mode. Again, whether that's your goal or not, that is what your body is doing. And so, again, thinking summer, thinking light, cooler foods. During this phase, your testosterone surges. And so, this is a really good time to ramp up your strength training, maybe go for some PRs, different things like that. And then when it comes to mindset, you have like the best of both worlds because you've still got some estrogen and you've got your testosterone. So your drive and energy is like at its peak. So this is an even more better time to start a new project, lean into
Mm-hmm.
difficult tasks. You have more capacity on your to-do list. Like, do you guys ever have weeks where you're like, I just feel like I can accomplish everything? Where like last week I couldn't get anything done. This is why. So this is a good time to really get things done, push yourself to do hard things, make a big move, jump into a new goal, whatever it is. Like, this is the time to do that. We're also going to switch our seeds at this point to sesame and sunflower seeds in preparation for that progesterone surge.
This is mating season, men. This is this is this is the time.
Everybody's
This is our
glorious
time.
days.
No, I'm just kidding. But this is so when she was mentioning earlier, like to not be silly, but this is the time when pregnancy happens. So like this is the window. If you're actively trying or actively trying not to, this is this window of time to be aware of, right? It's also again that time where this is where her libido is higher. So showing affection is really important, but you got to know how your spouse receives affection. So this is where the 5 love languages comes in really well. Know how your spouse receives affection and then do that. So like during this time, if I just sit next to my wife and read a book next to her and I'm just gently touching her arm, she's in heaven. Like just knowing what is that time, like this is when you want to activate all of that and you get massive extra points here. Um, and then also like kind of you already mentioned it, but this is also like how many of you guys have that long to-do list that it's just never ending, right? Here's where you go through that list and the things on there, they're the big ugly ones, you attack it during this week. Because now you have the most mental capacity to do it and you have the most energy to do it. Like this is the time you pull those guys out and you save the like little stuff for the lighter weeks when you're not feeling so good. But this is the one you pull the big ugly ones out during this week so you can nail them down.
Yeah. All right. And then after ovulation, we head into our luteal phase, and this lasts until we start our next bleed. So during this phase, we want to support progesterone because that is the main hormone of this phase. We also want to focus on balancing our blood sugar because as progesterone increases, our blood sugar can tend to dip more easily. When we have bigger blood sugar dips, we have bigger mood swings, bigger emotions. This is where PMS can tend to get a little out of control. So we want to focus on nutrient-dense meals, staying away from the sugars and the processed foods that unfortunately we can tend to crave during this time. But it's really important to focus on nutrient dense, just like Dr. Mike was talking about, everything that is not going to spike your blood sugar during this time.
Mhm.
Like I said, supporting your progesterone production. So your squash, citrus, banana, mango, salmon, walnut, oysters, bell peppers. And then we want to add in raw carrots again at this point. If again, you're someone who has a really symptomatic beginning of your cycle, because when estrogen spikes too fast, remember, we can get those mood swings, lots of low energy. So we want to start this now to help keep that in check until it is time for the estrogen to rise. So estrogen dominance, those kinds of things. Start adding in the raw carrots. When it comes to exercise, for that first part of your luteal phase, you're still kind of riding that high from your ovulation, but you're going to start feeling your energy dip. And so when you feel that, that's the time to start bringing intensity down, maybe going for some lighter weights, again, lower impact type workouts, yoga, Pilates, those kinds of things. And then with mindset, we're going to see a slow decrease in energy. Progesterone is your feel good calming hormone and tends to make you feel a little less social, a little more withdrawn. So you might feel like staying home, just kind of staying chill, low key. We want to keep our stress low at this phase because high cortisol decreases progesterone production. I know that is a really hard ask to keep your stress low. But the more we can keep those cortisol spikes low, the more we'll see that estrogen be able to hang in there a little bit better.
I think this is when women tend to become a lot more introverted, and it's on purpose, right? Like we get more introverted, and this is when if you're so like my wife is more introverted, I'm more extroverted, and I always want to plan hangouts with friends on the weekends, and this is like when I know that she's here. There's no hangouts allowed. This is like I black out at it. This like blacked out in my calendar, and then it makes her so happy. I don't say anything to her, but I say, "Hey, this is a family weekend. I call it the family weekend." She's like, "Oh, this is what I wanted." You know, like I'm like, "Hey, hon, do you just want to watch a movie today?" She's like, "How did you know?" I'm like, "Cause it's your psycho." But like, this is also where guys listening out here, this is when you leave love notes. This is when you leave all the little, "Hey, I love you. You're so sweet." This is when you like all the things. Not that it's not intentional, but this is when like they really need it, and it means so much to them because of where their hormones are. Like, be extra cuddly, be extra supportive, extra nourishing. Like, be their support system in this moment. This is really, really important. The other thing I was going to go back on, I don't know if we missed it, but what points for fasting? So, luteal phase, you are not fasting during luteal phase. You are not typically fasting during menstrual phase. You're fasting in the middle of your cycle.
Yeah.
So, follicular and ovulatory, that's when you're going to hit all your fasting. Like, you want to hit a 24-hour fast, girl? Now's the time. You're like, bring it on, right? But on the other sides, now we want to limit the fasting. So sometimes women like to do intermittent fasting. I would avoid as much of the fasting as possible during this luteal phase because, again, your body just needs consistency during this time.
Yes.
You agree there?
Yep, good
Okay.
point. One more thing. This is also a really good time to focus on adrenal support. So things like getting your morning sunlight, making sure you're drinking lots of water when you wake up, not drinking coffee on an empty stomach. I know that one's really hard too, but these are going to be really good ways to support your adrenals and keep that cortisol under control. Okay, so there is all of your lifestyle things, right? These are going to lay the foundation for healthy hormone balance. Then we add supplements because you have to remember you can't out supplement a bad lifestyle. But when it comes to hormone balance, a lot of us, unfortunately, need a lot of help in that department. So what we did tonight, we did something a little different. So we have our 3 foundational hormone bundle, which is 15% off tonight. So we have our women's hormone balance. This one has your minerals, it has your B vitamins, right? So we're replenishing what tends to get lost. Also has specific ingredients for supporting estrogen production and also estrogen detox, and then specific ingredients to support progesterone production. So really, really packed full of good nutrients to help support that nice balance throughout your cycle. Omega-3s, because we all need more healthy fats. Again, these are so important for hormone production, for brain function, for just overall health. And then your multi-magnesium. Magnesium is like, you can use magnesium, I feel like, for anything. But when it comes to hormones, helps with hormone production, it helps to keep cortisol under control, helps with hormone transport, helps with sleep. So all kinds of things that magnesium helps with when it comes to hormones. So these are going to be your foundational, like cover all of the general bases. Then we did some specific add-ons because when it comes to hormones, not everyone is the same. We all have these basic needs that we need to fill, but we also all have specific things that we need support in. So we have our adrenal support, our thyroid support. Those go without saying. If you need support in those areas, those are good for you. Berberine is really helpful for regulating insulin and blood sugar. So like everything he was talking about, if any of that relates to you, if you have PCOS, berberine is a really good one for you. When it comes to creatine, creatine is really helpful for women, which is kind of surprising because usually we think of it as the bro, like drink it to get big in the gym.
You're going to
But
flex.
I was.
I saw it.
Caught myself. But creatine is really important for brain function and reducing brain fog, that mental clarity. And so when we're in that phase where we're struggling with that, it's really helpful to bring that in. And then protein, of course, because none of us get enough protein in our diet as women. Our protein is specifically made with bone broth. And so remember, during that menstrual phase, we want to have more bone broth, more of those nutrients. It's actually already in there. So that's super convenient too. So if you add any of these on to your bundle tonight, these will actually be 20% off added into the bundle. If you need help deciding which one of these you need, come and talk to one of us. Talk to Honesty or Samantha in the back. We can help you with that.
Just a little fun hack. What my wife will do sometimes during either the menstrual or the luteal phase, where you need more of that like collagen and bone broth, she'll use the bone broth protein and then just do like a hot chocolate at night. So she'll get some raw milk and then she'll do some chocolate bone broth protein, and it's just like the warm, full of protein and full fat, and it's like craves everything that you need, but it's super super good. So raw milk, some of this, and then every now and then, depending on where she's at in her cycle, a little maple syrup makes its way in there.
Okay. Here's what I'm so excited about tonight, you guys. We are now partnered with Dutch Testing, and I am so excited to be partnered with them. I've had my eye on them for like years, for a long time. And now that I'm a doctor, I get to have my own provider account with them, which is super cool. Here's what I like about Dutch, and here's what I'll say. For those of you who don't have a specific like hormone dysfunction problem, you're just wanting to support good hormones, good health overall, the bundle is for you. If you're someone who has a specific hormonal symptom or cycle dysfunction going on, or like he mentioned earlier, you just want to know where you're at because it's been a long time, or maybe you've never had your hormones checked, this is something to look into. So there's 2 different tests that we're launching tonight. First is the Dutch Complete, and this gives you a complete insight into all of your hormones as regards to your sex hormones, your adrenal hormones, your stress hormones, your melatonin production through the night, micronutrient availability, and nutritional deficiencies. What I really like about this test is when you just go and get like a normal hormone panel done, you don't get a complete picture of what's going on. You get maybe 1 or 2 estrogens tested. This tests 9 different estrogens. You get maybe 1 progesterone. This tests 3. Like there's tons of different variations of hormones that we need to get an entire picture. This gives us all of that so that when we're looking at where is that breakdown in your cycle happening, we can identify it right away. We don't have to go further and further into testing. Now, this one is really cool.
It's the granddaddy of them all.
Yes. So, the Cycle Mapping Plus. This is all of this. And then we also include the cortisol awakening response test. So, this takes different tests throughout the day to see where is your cortisol when you wake up and where does it go throughout the day. Is the pattern what it should be, or is it higher than what it should be? And you'll take 9 different readings throughout your cycle. So what we get to see is a picture of your hormones in each phase of your cycle to map out exactly what is happening and are your hormones where they're supposed to be in each phase. I think this is so cool. I'm so excited about this. But I just want to point out with this, you guys, I have a really special personal place in my heart for these tests because I spent the better part of the last year trying myself to figure out what was going on with my hormones. Found myself working out, eating pretty good, on the outside, doing all the healthy things. But because I had let myself be so chronically stressed for so long, I found myself just exhausted, super unmotivated, not wanting to go to the gym. But what really got me to snap into this was we found ourselves, we wanted to start a family, and we got 6, 7, 8, 9 months in, and nothing was happening. And I was like, I don't even know if I'm ovulating. Like, what is going on? And it wasn't until I got some in-depth testing done and I was able to identify exactly where that breakdown was happening and fix it that we were able to get me back to functioning. But we were also able to get pregnant, which is just super cool. So, and I don't
It's
say
a
that
girl.
to be, it is a girl. And I don't say that to be like, oh, look at me and what happened, but I say that to say like, I know what it's like to be in that space where something is not right and you don't know how to figure out where that is and what to do to fix that. And so that's why I'm so excited to have these tests so that we can walk alongside together and identify where that breakdown is and fix it so that you can accomplish your goals, whatever they are, whether it's to get pregnant, whether it's to just have a pain-free regular cycle, whatever that is. So you can accomplish that and live your best life and just feel good in your body.
How many do we have physically?
We have one
Just one.
tonight. We have one. So, sorry, we have one.
Who's gonna get there first?
Yes.
No.
So we have one of these, but we will order more. So go ahead and make your order, and we'll get those in by Monday or Tuesday.
So because you guys are here tonight, everybody who puts their order in tonight, we will put the order in literally tomorrow to make sure that they get in. So whoever gets there first gets the one. But everybody else, if you put it in, you'll take advantage of tonight. We'll get everything ordered as of tomorrow. And then for the bundles,
Yes.
I believe we have 11 bundles made. So first 11 people that get back there for a bundle, get a bundle. Same concept though, is that if you guys go back there and there's not a bundle, do the ordering, you'll still save all of your discounts. And then we're gonna put the order in literally tomorrow and make sure everything gets in. So no worries there. Okay, let's round this baby out. So this is a really important hierarchy to look at. So most women, keep saying people, most women, you come in, if your hormones are dysregulated and you're imbalanced, here we are at the peak of this pinnacle, and you go, okay, what do we do now? Then we go down and we go through what I talked about earlier, and there's most likely toxic overload. So we got to look at doing some sort of a detox to make sure that we clear that part out. So making sure that we're not overly toxic is one big piece. Also, another important piece, if you're trying to get pregnant or if you know that you are pregnant, do not do a detox. Come and talk to us. Not a good time to detox, but that's a big piece. Then we go down to adrenal imbalance and cortisol levels. Again, if your body is living in fight or flight, or if your body is adrenally peaked and your adrenals are so overworked that you just have no energy ever, again, you're seeing now this imbalance that's going down. Then we go down to the nutritional imbalances. This is where we're talking about with PCOS and endometriosis and your insulin levels are out of whack. Then we go on to the very bottom. Here's where nervous system stress and dysfunction. Here's why we put this at the very bottom, is that if we look at this, your reproductive organs are only gonna do exactly what your brain tells it to do. So your brain and your nervous system is literally the number one thing that is coordinating the function of everything else. So even if you're stressed, guess what system in your body helps your body regulate stress? The nervous system. It's right there. The nervous system. But it's the nervous system that regulates your body's stress. If your adrenals are high, guess what system regulates the adrenal glands? The nervous system. The nerve system is the master control center. So the reason I put this on here is because it's like if you have your fuse box at home, right, on the outside of your house, it doesn't matter how brand new your fridge is. If I flip the fuse off to the refrigerator, it's not going to work. And the reality is a lot of times, if your spine is not aligned right, or if there's something wrong there, it's just cause and effect. If something is out here, whatever that's going to, whether it's your thyroid, your kidneys, reproductive organs, they're not going to get the proper signal. You're going to see the dysfunction come. So one of the biggest things a lot of times what we tell women is if you're not getting adjusted or you've never been adjusted, this is probably one of the first places to start, because if you start taking a supplement, but the nerves that go to your gut to understand the processing of that supplement is not good, do you see how you're not going to absorb the nutrients fully? Does that make sense? So the reality is if your body and nervous system are not aligned properly, everything you do on this side, the reality is we just don't want you to waste time and money knowing that your body isn't going to get the majority of what it should if it can't even process correctly. So that's why the nervous system balance is one of the most important pieces to start with. Hey guys, it's Dr. Mike from Power Family Chiropractic, and we are here with Heather and Jacob. And they have been with us for about a month now, and we are here to celebrate their story and share what where they've been and how far they've come so far. So guys, if you could, just a little bit, tell us what was life like? What were some of the struggles that you guys went through before you started coming here?
So I was having a lot of upper back pain, and I thought that it was because of our bed. actually talked Jacob into buying us a new bed, and it still hurt as much as I didn't want to admit it. So after Jacob came here, he wanted me to come in as well and get a consultation. So we did all the knowledge part stuff and did x-rays, and I actually have not been having any pain at all. So it's amazing.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't even originally planning on coming
Right.
to the chiropractor.
And top it off, like the cherry on the cake here, so to speak. There's another thing that has happened in this month of getting adjusted. So, what is the other thing that? And by the way, this isn't I did not know of when we started. But what? Tell us the other exciting news that we found out.
So for about 2 years prior to us being a part of chiropractor care, we had not been taking precaution or planning on having a child. But after 1 month, 1 month here, it happened. So I am pregnant now.
We are excited, baby.
Thanks, Dr. Mike.
This is so exciting. Again, here's the thing is, just to be clear, there was not a pregnancy adjustment that I was giving Heather, but when you remove the interference and let the body heal and you let the nerves get to where they need to go, God is amazing and your body heals. And here's the thing, if you're watching this, and if it's you that you're watching this and you have some things that you're going through that you're trying to find answers to, or if you have a family member that you need to drag in, or a friend that you need to drag in, like get them here, get them answers so they can live the life that God has ultimately called you to live, and we can be at our potential. When we first started in practice, when it was just my wife and I, years and years and years ago, one of the very first couples that we met, we started working with them, and the gentleman came in, he was the main person, his wife came in afterwards, and she just came in because she had headaches. And I was like, oh, I know how to fix headaches, right? So we were adjusting her, taking her x-rays, we worked on her. And what was cool was a month after they started getting adjusted, she came up to me and she's like, Dr. Mike, you did it. And I was like, oh, the headaches are gone. She's like, no, I'm pregnant. And I was like, I did not. Hold on. And here's what happened. What I found out, I didn't know this prior to them starting, but what she had told me was that for the last 2 years, they were trying to get pregnant and they were unable to get pregnant. After a month of getting her spine corrected, they conceived. And she was so excited, and I was so excited. We're all so excited. But here's the cool part is that sometimes you got to go back to saying, if the nerves aren't even connecting to the right area, like that's where you got to start. And I've seen it happen in the last 7 years we've been open. There's been 10 patients of mine who have gotten pregnant who were told, by the way, told by doctors that maybe your body's just not going to make babies. Maybe it's not able. And it's like, that's weird. It's not the God I believe in. No, that's weird. So then I go, no. There's always a cause. If you go back deeper, there's always a cause. So we start by getting the nervous system in balance. You look at the testing to figure out let's figure out what my body is telling me. Let's figure out what's going on there. And if you follow it along, there's always an answer. Does that make sense? Here's what if you take one thing away from tonight, what I want you to take away from, don't ever let a doctor or any other person label you with something other than child of God. Don't ever let them label you as saying that you are not going to be able to do blank. There's always a way. We got to figure out what is the thing that's not letting your body express that level of health. Does that make sense? We got to get rid of all of the negativity coming in. Like there's always a way. So this is another patient of mine actually who has now working on their third baby because of chiropractic care. Super, super cool. But when we look at this, here's where if you're not a patient in the office tonight and you don't even know who I am, by the way, I'm Mike. If you don't know who I am, if you've never been here before, here's what's really cool. My sister-in-law, she's a nurse in the hospital in Texas. I asked her, I said, hey, a typical patient that comes in my office, right, who is looking to start out, I said that we do an EMG nerve scan to test where your nerve system's at. We do a full set of digital x-rays. We do a consultation to go over what's going on. And then we do a full report of findings to tell them now, hey, here's what we found. This is what she told me that would cost in a hospital setting to get that. Now you wonder why most people aren't even getting the baseline to figure out what's going on, because that's ridiculous, right? Like no one should pay that number. So the reality is like when we started doing this, it's okay, hey, how do we make this better? So what we do is the price typically is $210 for us to do that for you guys here. those of you who are guests. But tonight, what we're doing is for $52. Again, that's just, here's our number, $52 to figure out. You get a full set of x-rays, a full thermal nerve scan, you get a full consultation with one of us, and you get to go over all the results. It's like, why, if you've never had it checked, that's the first place. And I only say it because, again, it would even say it later. I don't want someone to waste money on other things knowing that that's not even the baseline that's getting looked at. Does that make sense? But if you're someone in the office and you're already a patient and you're like, nope, hey, I'm already checking those boxes off, then if you need to, when we're done here, come talk to one of us and say, hey, I don't know if I need the bundle or if I need the testing. Like, we'll help you navigate that. But I want to make sure you guys feel confident walking out of here with answers to know that, hey, I feel good knowing that there is a protocol in place that when I go home tonight, I understand that this is the route I'm going to take and things are going to get better. Ultimately, that's what matters, that you walk out of here thinking there is hope and it's going to get better. Does that make sense? Okay. Upcoming events. We didn't hit a lot on nutrition. So next Wednesday night, Dr. Olivia is going to be doing a Nutrition 101 here in the office. So if you're like, hey, I would love to just get some more information on nutrition so I know the basics, come to the nutrition class and she's going to go over the basics to make sure that you have all of that covered. You know what should and what shouldn't be in your diet. And then every year, this is one of my favorites. I do a class called Healthy for the Holidays. This is the one where during the holiday season, we mess ourselves up bad. Yeah? I always say this. We call it the holidays, but we turn it into the months. There are 3 days that we celebrate, and there are 3 months of havoc we put on our bodies. In this workshop we're going to do here on the 29th of October, I'm going to walk you through how do you actually go through the holidays healthy? How do you do it to where you can still enjoy everything, you can still have a great time, you can still eat good food, but do it the right way and still have a place where you're not getting to January and you go, my resolution is to undo the last 3 months, right? Like no one likes that. Everyone's like this. So that workshop, we dive into that. It's super fun because we talk about all the holiday stuff. We uncover lots of goodies. So make sure you get signed up for this one up in the front if you are interested in that one. And then action steps. Tracking your cycle, right?
Yes. Sorry, I
Good.
didn't know I was supposed to do this one.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Track it.
Start tracking your cycle. So like I mentioned, there's a bunch of apps listed. Start tracking. 2 books I would recommend looking into to kind of teach you how to do this is called, one is The Fifth Vital Sign. I don't remember who it's by, but it's a pink book on Amazon. And then the other one is called Taking Charge of Your Fertility. Again, even if that is not a goal of yours, it goes through really in depth of how to track your cycle and identify when you have, so what you do is take like your temperature and then identify, oh, if a certain reading is this way, how to identify what is going on and what that means. Start cycle syncing. Start looking at your exercise, your nutrition, using those mindset tips to just support yourself throughout your cycle. Figure out what supplements you need to cover your deficiencies. And then for some of you, again, who have more going on, test, don't guess. We say test, don't guess, because what can be frustrating is when you have something going on and you're just throwing different supplements at it, guessing if they're going to help, rather than testing and knowing exactly what's going on.
Some of you guys need to take your notes and go home to your spouse or your significant other and say, all right, this is the game plan for the next months here. And you gotta share. You can, so the Clue app.
Yes,
this
it's
is
on
the
their
one,
handout.
Oh yeah, it's on your
Yeah.
handout. This is the one that my wife started using because you can actually share it. You can literally send it to somebody. I'm gonna make a new rule. I'm gonna make my whole staff send me their cycles so I know how to plan accordingly. After this, I'm gonna be on it with all of them to make sure I know what's going on at all times. But again, if you're a guest, guys, go see Sam in the front if you're interested in getting a new patient schedule set up. If you're looking at getting your bundles or if you have questions, go see Honesty and the girls up front for your bundles, your testing kits. If you have questions, we're going to hang up here for a little bit to answer any questions that you might have. Otherwise, way to go, guys. We did it.
Did it.